Hey, it's Johnson from Free Talk Live again, and this time I'm replying to Monica Dennington of TikTok Cuckoo Clock Ministries. And Monica, I want to reply to you, even though you do not value anyone's opinion, and you value an opinion that someone has convinced you is God's instead. But more so, I want to reply to others like you who are not so sure. I know you will want to reply back to me, but you've said that you won't, so you don't have to bother if you don't want to, although I do value a good open conversation. Just ask Father Matthew. The first quote you use in your video is exactly why people like me, Satanists, Atheists, Agnostics, dislike people like you so much. You are incredibly hateful. And you do not actually, and you actually believe such hateful and murderous words like the quote that you put forth in the Bible, from the Bible, in the beginning of your video. Read the quote again. Preach the word. You're a zealot. You're anti-gay, and you're anti-freedom. As far as to our honesty, we are, at least most of us, looking for the truth. What you are in fact citing as the intentional misquoting of the Bible is probably just a slip-up of someone cutting and pasting an accident from a website, or an intentional misquote by a Christian trying to make someone who's non-religious to step up, and, well, somebody else cut and paste it. Accidents happen. But I assure you that most people who are not religious are in fact seeking the truth. You make accusations about saying that we know that God exists and that we're just denying it, but I would suggest that you are the one who has a need to fight so hard to prove to yourself that God exists. You suggest that atheists and agnostics and Satanists are fighting so hard to disprove God and trying to disprove Jesus. Well, I think that you've become a little confused there. You see, we're not fighting so hard because we know that God exists, and we're, fighting to make sure, that a message is spread far and wide that helps to undermine and eliminate your indoctrination of children. We're not fighting because we believe that God exists. We're fighting because we know that the answer isn't out there. The answer is not provided by you. It's not provided by any religion. Some atheists have a belief that God, in fact, does not exist. I'm not one of those. I believe that there aren't any answers, and looking for them and making them up is a futile activity. Now, does preaching Allah and preaching Buddhism make me mad? You bet it does. You bet it does. I'm just as mad at Muslims as I am at Christians. I'm just as mad at... I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say Buddhists, because Buddhists, at least they believe that their enlightened one is a human being. But it's supernatural. Anything supernatural, it's the same thing. It's charlatanism. Now, as far as the hateful comments which you have received from men who say that they want to rape you, well, I think it's a horrible thing to say, and I would never say such a distasteful thing. I have no idea what those men were thinking. Obviously, men like that who want to have sex with you have no class whatsoever. As far as why these people hate you, I don't see why you can't understand why some people hate you. You're hateful, you're judgmental, and you're against freedom. You think that you have a moral authority, and you hate an entire class of people, gays. Well, you claim that people are going to start loving more if those like you in your ministry convert people to Christianity. Really? What if they're gays? What if there's gays around? What if you're around Muslims? What then? Religion has brought more violence to this planet than anything else. Read the Bible. Look at the movie Passion of the Christ. Look in the Middle East. The religious love violence. Period. You constantly appeal to Pascal's wager. over and over. You talk about agnostics, atheists, Satanists being at the pearly gates and then having to go to hell. And you think it's that simple. What about Islam, Hinduism, the Chinese, Buddhism, Diaspora, Sikhism, Shinto, Zoroastrianism, Neo-paganism, Rastafarianism? More than 2/3 of the planet does not believe what you believe. Why doesn't God's supposed word manifest in those who are not simply surrounded by indoctrination? Look at how big you smile every time you say something about God that doesn't make sense, like, He's God and you're not, or He's the one with the power to enforce His opinions because His judgments are always right. You get a rush from saying these sorts of things. Neurobiologists have found that the same holds true for people who say stuff like that about their political candidates. Personally, I think that's like a disease that should be medicated. Anyway, at about this point in your video, you start rambling about how we judge God, and who are we to think that we are more loving than God, because how can we possibly claim that He's a tyrant? Well, first of all, when we make claims, it's about your stories. It's hard for you to see through your blind faith, but over 2/3 of the world, again, does not believe what you do. And we, the activists, non-religious, are trying to make sure that that number gets smaller. Christianity is simply the largest religion at the moment. When you are no longer on top, the non-religious will probably focus on someone else. Now, I'm sure that there will still be some that prefer to attack Christianity, but just as there are some that prefer to attack Islam now, what I find confusing about you is the dog tag, the dark clothing, the dyed pink hair. It looks like you want to fit in with the culture that we have created. It looks like you want to be able to understand the anti-cool, the anti-hero mentality that we have created by those who understand what it's like to be an oppressed minority. Your hate will always keep you outside of that, though. And you see from being around the non-religious how accepting and, in fact, how non-judgmental we are. And that's what you crave. You wish that you were not constantly being judged about every little thing that you do. Until you can let go of that in yourself, it's always going to be reflected back upon you. You will never know the power of accepting and loving someone in this life and not believing that there's going to be an afterlife to make up for lost time or broken promises. The mentality that you have, even if it's just one, even if we can save just one person, well, we share that mentality. You see, you call it Jesus, I call it freedom. You say a person with a testimony is never at the mercy of a person with an argument. And I agree with you 100%. Especially when the person who's claiming to have a testimony is doing something about something that has never actually happened. You can't argue with that. You can try, but your argument isn't for that person. Arguments aren't for you. Luckily, there are some people, like the director of The God Who Wasn't There, and one of the major influences behind the Blasphemy Challenge, Brian Fleming. He was religious and found freedom from that through the constant rational questioning of those around him, which finally unlocked his mind from the vicious cycle of religion. It is people like that for whom we argue and for whom we fight. You say that we, the non-religious, are not made for hate, and that we're hateful. Turn that logic in on yourself when it comes to how you treat Muslims, or how you treat gays and atheists and those around who have different beliefs than you do. Turn that logic on when it comes to how others who want to live their lives and speak their minds around you, how they open up, how you treat them. You claim that we are hateful. For most, the truth is obvious. I don't hate God. And I don't hate Jesus because I don't believe in your concepts of those things. I don't hate you for believing those things. I pity you. I pity you because you're not free. You're trapped by your belief that this life is not important, and by the notion of living for an afterlife that may or may not exist in the way that you have been utterly convinced that it will play out. All I wish for you is freedom, and all I wish for others is freedom and an open mind. And I hope you can listen to that message, and if you feel like you need to reply to this, you go right ahead. Again, I do like an open conversation. I don't think you're going to reply, but again, this isn't really for you.